Happy anniversary, my love. It's been a very, very wild 2 years. This will be the second year of doing the show around this time, August 2023. Um, the evolution of the show has been really insane. I've had a lot of really incredible conversations with some really incredible guests that I'm blessed to call friends, and collaborators and everything of the sort. So and it's been a beautiful journey. What the show's become. So I say happy anniversary, my love. Thank you for everything that you've shown me, everything that I've learned by doing this, everything um, that has transpired because of the show. I thank you very much. Happy anniversary, my love. Good morning. Welcome to the show. What a great way to start the episode. Actually, I'm not normally this positive and excited, but I don't know. August is usually a very reflective month for me, and as a result of that, so is the anniversary of the show. I think a lot about, where my life is currently, where it is personally, where it is mentally, physically, um, where the show is, because I started, I believe it was like mid or late August, something like that. Um, that's the reason they're always uploaded on the 28th, is because the first one went up on the 28th. So I feel like I have to keep a tradition every month that that's what's going to happen. Um, so I reflect on myself, reflect on the show, I reflect on my career. Uh, August is pretty heavy on reflecting, just on life and where things are, for myself, just personally. I do this deep dive where I sort of pick apart everything I did in the last year, and I sort of look forward to, like, okay, what can I improve on? What should change? What shouldn't change? Um, what should I get rid of? That sort of thing. And this is no exception. Today we're basically going to be getting into what the future of this show is going to look like. We're going to get into kind of what my career has been like, and what I hope the future is going to look like. And I'm going to get into a little bit of my personal life and kind of what I hope changes, and what positive things I've seen. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So as far as the future of the ALG show goes, I have a few different directions that I want to take it. A few ideas that are kind of ruminating in my mind, and a few things that I'd actually like feedback on. If you know me, feel free to send me a text or call. I would love some feedback on this. Also, in general, in the comments, if you guys have any feedback on what I should do, what you'd like to see from the show, please, please, please do let me know. I take all the feedback into heavily consideration when evolving the show, and especially in these anniversary episodes, I'd like to put some more weight into these decisions. So one thing that I've actively thought about is I want to diversify the guests that are being brought on. I know on the show I have a lot of like filmmakers, and like film industry professionals, and I really, really do enjoy those conversations, kind of above anything else. But I'd like to, broaden it out a little bit, maybe different kinds of artists, maybe like musicians, maybe, something in the music world, maybe traditional artists such as painters, sculptors, maybe digital artists, people who specialize in like Photoshop or graphic design. Just a few kind of examples off the top of my head. I'd like to do more episodes with different kinds of artists, and kind of broaden the reach of the show, and broaden the types of people that I bring on. Of course, filmmakers will always be sort of the bread and butter, and the conversations that I understand the best. They're going to be kind of the best questions. They're going to be kind of the most in depth. Because it's something that I understand, right? But I want to kind of expand the horizon a little bit, and I want to see, kind of what different artists' processes are, for example, like the way that they sort of execute on ideas, or maybe, sort of their perspective on like certain things like AI and that sort of thing. The only other person who's mentioned AI is Byron Mason too, which was a previous guest earlier this year. I'd like to have more of those conversations that sort of uh, brought in the perspective of artists that I talked to, and brought in the um, sort of conversations that I have. And I think by having different artists, I think that could be a really interesting um, pathway for the show to go down. But if that's something that interests you guys, please do let me know. It's something that I'm still actively toying with. I have like a few people outside of the filmmaking sphere that I think would make really, really interesting guests. But I'm not 100% on like, I'm like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You know what I mean? Like on one hand, I really like the specialty stuff. I guess a good example would be like the Cinematography Saloon, where they're kind of more DP centric, or the American Cinematographer podcast, where they're more DP centric. Which, I again, this is just me. I personally really enjoy those conversations. I'm a sucker for it. But as far as like the show, I think as far as like personal experience, I would like to diversify and kind of see what the future of that looks like. And then maybe if you guys have some guest recommendations that you think are within reach for me, don't recommend me like a Greg Fraser or like a Roger Deakins or something like that's obviously, or like a Quentin Tarantino. Like that's just unattainable for me, just considering the size of the show. But I want to see like what types of artists, maybe for example, that you guys would be interested in seeing. I'm going to take all this into heavy consideration, and kind of figure out a way to move forward. Yeah, that's something I'm thinking about. I think I want to go in this direction for the show. I think it could be really, really interesting. I got some feedback from a friend of mine, the last guest of the show, which is EJ Cabasal, right? He's a podcast producer, so he's familiar with this game, and he works with a lot of like comedian. For example, he produces the Tiger Billy podcast with Bobby Lee, and one kind of key element that he mentioned, which I thought was really interesting, was that I have to have a visual podcast, like a non-negotiable thing. I have to have it. And when he first mentioned it to me, I was like, I don't know. Like I like, as for example, right now, like I'm recording this in the equipment room of my studio in LA, right? I like that I don't have to have this sort of pressure to perform. And I feel like the guests sort of like it as well. Like it's this pressure of like, oh, does my hair look good? Or, oh, does this look good? Or like, am I looking weird when I say this one thing or not? Like I just, I like that natural comfort that guests tend to have, or that relief that guests tend to have, where they sort of realize like, oh, this isn't like, we don't have to perform in a sense. But I will say, but I hear you. It's heavily considered. I would like to toy around for it. I would like to toy around with it at least for the solo episodes, like this. I would like to toy around with it, just because now we have the psych installed in our studio space. So I think that could be a really interesting thing to mess with visually, and also like being a cinematographer, I could see it being really interesting to create like different visuals, um, for each episode, depending on the guests. Maybe create a different color palette, create a different look for them. But yeah, it's all like it's something that I'm actively thinking about. I'd like to toy with it. Here's what I'll say, just so I leave you with something. I would like to toy around with it myself, and just to kind of see like, okay, what do I like? What do I not like? Before I then bring on like a different guest who, maybe I'm not super set on doing these sorts of things with. Like I want to have kind of a system locked down, so that I can then just sort of plug and play certain things, or kind of pick between different looks. between each episode. But that's I don't know. That's it's again, it's still something that I'm actively like toying with and considering, and I just in due time. Here's what I'll say to that: in due time, I would like to do it, but in due time. Um, but I don't know. It's still a lot in the air. If you guys would like a visual, I'm not intentionally hiding my face. I just I just tend to be more comfortable without the camera in front of me. Um, like I'm very public about what my face looks like. I really don't try to hide it or take any effort to try and hide it. It's just like it's just never like I don't know. I'm just more comfortable behind the camera than in front of it, and I feel like guests are also. But I think it could be a good opportunity to change it. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm going crazy and I'm just talking myself into a circle. But yes, please let me know. Any feedback is greatly considered. I really appreciate every one of you. Um, Also, I'd like on like kind of a side tangent since I am producing one a month. I would like to do again, if this is something that you're interested in, and if it's not, then don't waste my time. Don't let me waste my time. But I'd like to do more solo episodes, maybe something a little bit more in depth to kind of what I've been doing, maybe something in depth about maybe you have personal questions about like my career, or just other stuff like that. Maybe where I do like these little 15-minute like bite-sized episodes or something like that. I'd like to do maybe that looks like something like behind a Patreon or something, or maybe that's like a Discord server or something like that. Like I'm kind of toying with this one. I'm like not super like committed to trying, or this one I'm not super committed to like making this a thing for the show. But I would like to consider more solo episodes, and may potentially behind like a Patreon or like a private forum where um, you guys can ask me questions and maybe I can give some feedback on certain things. The only reason I'm not super keen on it is because like I don't know, maybe this is like an imposter syndrome thing, but I feel like there's better people to ask. You know what I mean? Like I'm sort of this like I'm not like a Roger Deakins. You know what I mean? Like he has his forum that you can kind of ask any questions to, and he's always on there like 110%, right? I'm just like one guy. So I think the main thing, if I were to do, if this sort of thing would be brought to reality, I think it would be for more niche stuff, like just sort of personal dialogues that I want to have, these little 15-minute bite-sized episodes. Maybe if uh, like if I do like a Q&A at some point, like I like the people on the Patreon would kind of have access to certain things, like maybe being able to feed a question at that Q&A like a little bit sooner before the rest of the public. So like a private access sort of thing, or like an early access sort of thing, I think is like the lens I would do it. And it would be like significantly earlier. I hate when like there's people who offer like a Patreon or like a members only thing and it's like a day before. Like I really hate that because it's like I could have just waited a day. And you could make this argument too. Like please let me know. Like you could make this argument too of like, oh, I can just wait and like do it. This isn't something I'd want to pay for. Maybe let me know of something that you would consider paying for if it would be if I were to offer a certain thing. And I wouldn't make it expensive. I think I'd maybe make it like $2.50 a month, like $2.50 a month, or like $5. $5 at like the max. Even then, I'm like that's pushing it. I don't know, but if that's something that you'd sort of be interested in, and I could offer, if you feel like I can offer something that could be compelling or that could make you want to be like, oh, I would pay for this. Like, please feel free to let me know. I'm taking all of this stuff into consideration, and I want to really offer something that people like enjoy versus something that's like just gated behind a paywall just because. Like, I really hate that. So, um, if there's anything that you guys would think like, oh, I would like if you offered this for the podcast, or oh, I would like if Alex discussed this or that, or whatever it is that you've seen other people do that you've gotten value from, please do let me know. I'd like to heavily consider it when making this sort of decision. Good morning. I come back to maybe like 2 hours later, I had a friend of mine, Byron Mason, too, come by to pick up some gear. Byron, if you're listening to this, it was great to see you again. I'm glad that I got to chat with you and put you on the Polaroid wall here at the studio. So where did I last leave you? I'm sorry, my love. Where did I leave you? How's my career been? That's kind of the next talking point I want to discuss. Honestly, things are pretty slow. I feel like jobs have been pretty fickle. But I will say though that the jobs that I do get, being that they're few and far in between, um, they pay pretty well and they take care of a lot of stuff for me. It's hard for me to say if things have really progressed, unfortunately, because of how few and far projects are in between. On one hand, I feel like things have definitely moved. The scale of production has increased definitely within the last year or so. But at the same time, it feels like there's a lot of gaps in between when jobs are happening, and it's hard for me to feel like I'm moving forward and that things are happening and that sort of thing when there's a lot of time in between just to think about what type of work you're getting, the type of directors you're working with, and that sort of thing. So on one hand, it's like if you look at like my resume objectively, yes, there's a lot of new additions and there's a lot of brands that you can recognize, a lot of names you can recognize, which first of all is a blessing in and of itself, right? And I'm grateful for that. But on another hand, like it's equally as difficult for me to sit with myself and say, Jesus Christ, I haven't worked in 2 weeks. What am I going to do with myself? How do I make rent? And it's a really difficult stark back and forth that I have to move in between, which I'll get into more of like my mental health and that sort of thing. I'll dive into that, but yeah, on the lens that I view my career as currently is it is progressing, yes, but the opportunities unfortunately are few and far in between. So I'm moving, but very slowly, like a snail instead of a rabbit. Or what is it? The turtle and the turtle. I'm more like the turtle and not the rabbit. Someone said he wins the race. I think that sentiment is true. I think that sentiment is potentially true for this, right? But I don't know like what the future is going to look like. It's hard for me to say if I feel like I've progressed. I'm going to say here's what I'll say. I'll say like I've definitely progressed and I've made some positive strides in my career and my workflow and all these sorts of things. So I'm going to say yes, things are moving great. That maybe that's naively thinking, but I think I've moved in the way that I'd like and very, very content with a lot of stuff. I've thought more, because of the larger scale of productions, I've thought a little bit more about kind of different investments I want to jump into. I want to make kind of a proper jump into maybe some flavor of like a high-end full frame camera, which I don't have currently. I haven't really explored it much, and I think it could be a really interesting, kind of next evolution in my cinematography. I'd also like to, on the same vein of thought as like investments, I'd also like to get some better glass. I have a set of like the Dizio film, the Vespid Primes, which I like the focal lengths. I have a 12 mil, I have a 25, a 40, and a 90, which is a macro. And they're all like decently fast. They're like at a T29, but it feels like I bought them maybe like beginning of 23, end of 24, or beginning of 23, or sorry, beginning of 24, end of 23. That was like around when I bought them, and I feel like they're fine. They're fine. Like they do the job. That's kind of how I feel about them. Like I feel like they just kind of do the job and they cover it. they cover any sensor. Like if I'm working with like an FX6, they cover them. If I'm working with like an Alexa Mini, they cover them. Like it's it covers my back. decide that I want to work with a different sensor, and then that sort of thing. Or if a friend wants to work with them and they have something full frame, that's another thing as well, right? Um, but I think I'd want to pick up something like proper and like a little bit more stylized, with character that I think like represents my look and what I want to say visually. Um, I've toyed around with a few different options. I'm not. I feel like I could go in any direction with it. Like I could go more vintage. I could go more clinical or like clean, sharp glass. Um, but that's something I have to like do my research like thoroughly for. I definitely want to do like maybe a Zeiss or a Cook. I've considered like Tokina Vista Primes. Kind of my criteria for this is the camera is kind of obvious. It's between two things. I don't want to fully say what that choice is because I want to like properly announce it, and I don't want any outside bias interfere with kind of what I'm thinking because it's a very personal choice, right? But as far as the glass goes, I guess I could kind of discuss like kind of the family of lenses that I'm thinking. I've thought about Cook. I've thought about Zeiss. I thought about Tokina. The Tokina Vista Primes, I've seen them on a few productions. For example, like Loki Season 2 and like a few other things that this particular DP has shot. I'm forgetting their name, forgive me. But I've been a really big fan of their work. But yeah, I've sort of thought about those family, either Tokina, Zeiss, or Cook. I'm kind of leaning more towards Zeiss and Cook. I think if I'm going to be spending that much money, I think I'd want something in that family of lenses. But I'm looking at a few things, and I think I need to take the time to like rent a bunch of glass and like really try to kind of narrow down like why do I like certain things, and basically just take a ton of notes and like you know I want to really think thoroughly on this investment. Like I want to make sure that I'm making the right purchase, and I want to make a purchase that really grows with me, and then can cover a bunch of sensors, and that over the long term I don't feel like I have to buy something else, or that I've grown old of, or that I've grown out of. You know what I mean? Like it's something that I'm taking my time with. The camera I kind of already know, but the lenses, I really want to take my time. There's the saying of like date the body, not the lenses, or date the body, marry the lenses. So I want to see. I guess I'm comparing this to dating now. I want to see some lenses, and I want to see which one I get married to. And then I want to see some cameras, and I want to hopefully date one of them. But we'll see what happens. In due time, I'll figure this out. I'm really in no rush to make this decision. I think one piece of advice that I was given like throughout my career and throughout my life is like don't rush to get into debt. And I hold that sentiment really true. I don't want to rush to make a purchase. I don't want to rush to feel pressure to have something. I want to make it right, and I want to do justice by this purchase, and just feel really confident about it. Um, how are you doing? How am I doing? I'm okay. I'm okay, I guess. That's about as good as it's gonna get. I think I've dedicated more time to learn more about myself. I've been taking a lot of time to give myself love and grace and figure out what exactly that looks like for myself. I think I'm very, very guilty of being very harsh on myself. I am my own worst critic. I am my own op, if you will. It's funny because I'm kind of thinking about a conversation now that I had with a friend of mine, Justin Fairweather, who we worked together pretty recently on a commercial, and the commercial is not public. It's done, but it's picture locked, edit locked, everything, but it's not public. And he sent me a link to the final like Vimeo master file, and we ended up grabbing coffee like shortly after he sent it to me. And I even feel ashamed to saying this now, but I remember like in the moment I was like, I have my own. Oh, this is what I told him. I was like, I have my own opinion of what I thought on my work, but man, the edit, we really bodied that. We really nailed that at 110%. Um, which sucks. Like that sucks. You know, like I hate that I almost get like frustrated at how low I feel of myself sometimes. You know? It's like, no, you did really well. You did the best that you could have given your circumstance. And I think it came out really well. I think I should have said that. And I'm mad at myself for not saying that. But again, I'm trying to show myself more love and grace. I think, I just need to have a different perspective on my work. I think I need to be more loving. I need to give more grace. And going back to sort of the mental aspect of like my career, where I was talking about, like these big gaps in my work, like, I'm guilty of being very hard on myself because it's like, oh, why aren't you working? And then when I am working, it's like, oh my God, this is the best feeling on earth, which isn't a thought that people should have, to be honest. I think I need to try to maintain a more level head. I think it hurts in so many different areas of my life. It's it's hurt in like dating. It's hurt in just friendships. It's hurts in so many different areas, right? And I need to find a way to. I've restrained it a little bit more. Believe me, I made some like really, really, really serious progress in that regard. Like, I had a therapist to help me out with this. I'm very blessed to have a therapist to help me out with this, right? And I'm making like big strides to make progress and to really, not be in my own way, I guess. And, I'm at a point where I'm like, I'm kind of frustrated and things need to change. So that's, I guess, where I'm at is that I'm just like trying to actively refine what love and grace towards myself really looks like, especially with the long term. You live with yourself your entire life, and I want to make sure that I get along with this person, you know. So that's part of it. I mean, also too personally, like I've without getting too into it, like I've developed, certain hobbies which I've really fallen in love with. Over the last year, I've really fallen back into love with filmmaking, with new collaborators and new friends that I've made, and as well as like even older collaborators that I've got to work with this year, for example. Right? It's 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 been really nice, and I feel really blessed with where my life is right now, um, given the circumstances of work and stuff. But I feel good. I feel good about my life, and I feel very happy with my life, and I feel grateful for the people that I'm surrounded by, the friends, collaborators, the family, all that sort of stuff. I'm very, very happy and very excited about this next year and to see where things go, because I think I fall in love with the mystery of that, of like not knowing where things are going to go, and could go in any direction, and I think that's a weirdly positive way to look at it. And I think more um on my life in that way. Like the mystique is kind of fun, you know. Um, so yeah, I'll say that. I'll say I'm doing okay, trying to do better actively. But we'll be okay. We'll be all right, probably. Um, I'll leave it at that. But yeah, this is. I feel this getting a little rambly. Um, I've touched on a lot of key things that I try to touch on in my my anniversary episode. I really try to move forward with my career, move forward with this podcast, and move forward with myself personally. Like I really think about the next evolution all the time. I always want to be moving. I always want to be, in this next stage, and I think forward about what my life could be versus what it is now, which is a long time coming, I think. But anyways, I'll let you go. I know I've been rambling for a minute. Happy anniversary, my love. It's great to see you always. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Peace.